32. I am Rob, and with us today is Scott Kinney, who has done some amazing stuff. I mean, he's been a collector for years and years and years, and he got to do a little show with someone you might have heard of. His name is Mark Hamill. That's pretty cool. And then, now he's moving up in the world, and he's going to do the Game Chasers movie with us. He did the Game Chasers movie with us. But I'm kidding. Scott, how are you doing, man?
Great. I'm doing good. I never got sick with COVID, so life is great.
I was going to ask, I mean, how have you been kind of adjusting to that? Because I think we all have to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, life changed. I mean, this has been like so radical. I mean, I know a few people, some people's lives haven't significantly changed. Mine did. I was one of those people that I didn't get sick and no one died or anything like that, but my business got killed. So, I mean, what happened is if those, if you don't know me, one of the things I do is I put on shows. I put on like events. Billy and Jay do that as well with Retropalooza. But I did it full time. So I got in a situation where I had no income for a full year, basically because of this. So it was like, wow, okay. So, and also I had a lot of financial commitments because of the situation. Some of them got resolved, some didn't. So it's been for me just like crisis central, like kind of on a daily basis, like just sort of dealing with the fallout of losing my business, losing all of my shows. I didn't transition to doing an online sort of YouTube, show or a Facebook show. A lot of people did. I mean, some cons actually transitioned to doing their cons online, things like that, which you can do if you have celebrities. But most of my shows were about vintage and antique stuff, so it wasn't really an option. But, life happens. You just roll with the punches.
Right. No, I mean, that's exactly. It's funny. We've got a bunch of people here already. We've got, my dad is in chat. So hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
And then we've got Bucho here, who's a long time, he's a big time fan of what I've been able to do over the years. So it's cool to have him here. Octavius is here. He's also I've got Billy is here, and he says that he's here.
Billy.
Yeah, he says he's here to troll. So
oh God.
So here we go.
I mean, comments off, so I don't. You'll have to relay them to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's they're going crazy. Look at this. We've got they're spamming all of the what do you call it, the events in Nightbot, that I set up, like I set up for you.
Oh, right, yeah.
They're spamming them all, and now Nightbot is it's kind of timing people out for a second. But oh my gosh, okay, so Jim just hosted, and then Jim just subscribed. So Jim. So yeah, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Wow.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I'm going to say some real controversial things and make this blow up.
That's great. I mean, that's
my first controversial thing is that any Star Wars toys after 1985 are just shit.
There's some. Well, let's see. That's awesome.
It doesn't matter if they're actually better. It doesn't matter if they're better sculpted, better toys. They're shit. Sorry.
Well,
so I'll just throw that out there, and then people can come back at me with why I'm wrong.
That is one of the things that I've learned by watching a bunch of YouTube and a bunch of Twitch over the years is that sometimes you just have to say just one little trolly thing just to get people riled up, and it gets people watching and gets people engaged. So I love it. I love it. It's great. And then yeah, so you mentioned the collecting, the conventions. I wanted to kind of ask you about those things. I mean, like of course I mean, here's the other thing that I was kind of afraid of, having you on, is that you've done some of these interviews in the past, and I don't want it to be like, watching another Spider-Man movie where they go into Uncle Ben again, or another Batman movie where you see Thomas Wayne murdered again. You know what I'm saying? So I want to try to keep things a little fresh, at least for you, just so you don't have to go through the same thing again. But
I killed Uncle Ben.
you were the guy.
Yeah, no, I understand, because obviously, I've been on a few podcasts to talk about the Game Chasers movie, and a lot of people are going to listen to. So I don't want to, So if you see any questions or see any rude comments, I really want to address the rudest ones first.
Okay, well that's good. We've also got Matt Retro Wolf is here too.
Hey Matt, love you, bud.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, he was one of the interviews that I watched to kind of sort of prepare. I mean, I knew you pretty well, but yes, the collecting with. I mean, obviously, you've got an amazing collection and you've been at it for years. But like, it seems like the antiques seems almost like a natural progression. Maybe it's because your wife has an interest in it as well. But I just like to hear kind of how that got started.
Well, I'm a weird person, I think, in a way, in that I was interested in nostalgia at a fairly early age, like when I wasn't even old yet, like too young to be nostalgic. But I'm just going to lay this out there. There is no decade better than the 1980s, in my opinion. The 80s, just culture, like music and television and movies and video games and toys and trading cards and wrestling and everything that was happening in the 80s was so awesome. And my parents grew up in the 50s, and they'd say, ha ha ha, the 1950s were so much better than the 1980s, bro. You don't even know. And I can understand that, because I love the 1950s. I mean, I wasn't alive, but I'm into, and it's probably because I was indoctrinated by television with Happy Days in the 1970s and movies like American Graffiti and things like that told me that the 1950s were the greatest decade of all time. So I don't know why, but that I at a young age I started like buying old stuff, like right out of college, when I had my first salary job in the advertising industry. I started buying like old vintage toys, like $6 Million Man, and I mean the gamut. I mean, I ran the gamut, because I collected some of my earliest childhood toys, but I loved the 1980s. I started buying 80s toys at a very young age. So I just had like this retro mindset. My downside is I would be a billionaire today. I'm not joking. I was so into stuff. The problem is I was so broke that, like, for me, a mint in box $6 Million Man figure at $15 was like a real stretch. I mean, I had a full-time job, I had a salary, but back then I was making probably 16,000 annually a year. I don't know what that equates to per hour, but that was a professional job. That was a salaried professional, position. So, I mean, it literally came down to like formula for the baby or the $6 million man toy. There wasn't eBay, there weren't all these other methods to like make money back then. There wasn't
Right.
GoFundMe, there wasn't you had money or you didn't. There, whatever your boss paid you is what you got. You could have a side hustle, and a lot of people did, and I did. I worked freelance, but you just could. Funds were just funds. They were just limited. So I bought little things here and there. I had amazing opportunities to buy huge collections back in the day. I had no money. I had no leverage. I had nothing. So it was just sort of like, I love all these old toys, but $20 is pretty steep, dude. That's so stupid. But it just, it is what it is. So I started going to antique shows and flea markets and stuff like that at a young age. And my antique show business it was born out of that back in 2009, because I had, let's see, I was freelance at that time. I was working for myself, and the housing market, thing happened. The crash happened. All the financial markets just went to crap. So a lot of my clients were in retail. I worked for a lot of shopping malls, doing advertising for shopping malls. And well, the shopping mall business had been distressed for decades. And, by that point was just almost totally gone. And that was a lot of my clients. And I had a lot of expertise in that area and stuff. And shopping, a lot of my customers just said, "Hey, we've cut our advertising budget like down to zero. I know that doesn't work with you." So, anyway, my wife and I decided to do an antique show, for lack of anything other. I had no job, had no money, things just kind of went to crap. And I thought, well, I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was born and raised there. I was living not far from Tulsa at the time. And I thought, well, we can, what if we rented a venue like the old days, uh, and put on an antique show? And uh, like I said, so many things were in flux at that time. The collector's market was really down. Antiques were down. People were telling me, well, people don't go to antique shows anymore, blah, blah, blah. Well, we put one on and people came. And so we just started doing it. And I did that for 3 years until I was making enough money to go, I can do this full time now. I don't have to do all this other stuff. I can dedicate myself to putting on these antique shows. And so we started, my wife and I, Gail, we started doing them in 10 different states, and putting in some places, putting them on twice a year or 3 times a year. So it became like a full-time thing, and I loved it because I don't. My wife collects antiques. She loves pottery. She loves glass. I read and collect antique books because I believe personally that history books are more accurate when you get closer to the actual events. So I think antique books are invaluable, and I highly recommend them to our audience. If you want to know what actually happened in world history, uh, try to find books and documents closer to actual historical events. Just like if something happened to my next door neighbor, it would be more accurate for me to talk to my neighbor what happened versus
Right.
3 people down. You know what I mean? So books are invaluable to me. Anyway, we started putting those shows on. They were successful. We started growing that business, and I'm not a big antique, furniture collector, whatever, but our shows have jewelry, furniture, all those kind of things. But I latched on to toys because that was already one of my collecting bents. And I started specializing in toys. Like anyone that would bring toys to my shows, vendors, dealers, uh, I'd buy them up. I'd buy anything they brought. I'd just be like, oh wow, so you brought some Star Wars toys. Well, how much for all of this? And a lot of times they were like happy to get rid of them because they're like,
Right.
well, I bought this and these things came with it. I know you like toys. Do you want to buy these? So I started buying, and then I started selling. And a friend of mine who was an antique dealer, and this guy is just fascinating. His name's John Knotts, and he lives in outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in Spavinaw, Oklahoma. And John Knotts is one of those guys that is he's so old school. He ran away from home at like 16 years old with nothing, and started selling vintage 50s clothing at flea markets. He'd go to like thrift stores and whatnot, and it would set up a flea market selling, 50s clothing, like hip and cool clothing. But this is back in the 80s. So he was like way ahead of the whole thing. And I met John about 12 years ago now. And he's just been a huge inspiration for me. He's a cool guy. He's like a legit like hipster. And he still has the pompadour and stuff. And so at one point John told me to start selling my toys because I would get more toys, and it didn't make any sense, counterintuitive, but it worked. I suddenly had this amazing collection of toys because people, they'd see that I was selling them. They'd bring me more to buy from them. They'd say, "Oh, do you buy these He-Man toys? Do you buy these Star Wars toys? Do you buy these Transformers and stuff?" And I would like, yes, all of it. I just buy as much as I could, and soon I had filled my entire 3-car garage. I had this huge 3-car, completely full of toys, and that happened within about a 6-month period of me selling toys. But this was 10 years ago. So things were different. I mean, the Game Chasers ruined it for fucking everybody. Literally. Everyone wants to trace back when all this went to shit. It goes back to Billy and Jay. Just fucked it for everybody.
Oh man, I should have muted. They caught me off guard. I swallowed my own spit wrong. But no, it's weird that you say that though. It's like there's these moments where things. It could be because Billy and Jay, if you think about it, they came along the same time as like the Auction Hunters and all those shows on.
Storage Wars and stuff like that. It did happen. It all really did kind of. I think, reality television and all that kind of stuff, that confluence all happened at the same time.
Billy said, "F you, I'm here to troll you, not the other way around."
Oh man. Yeah. His mentions, I know, man, they're gonna struggle after this. Billy struggles with the comments. Dude, don't read the comments. Fuck, don't read them.
No, it's funny. It's one of those things where, you see it all the time, but haters gonna hate, and they're just gonna hate whatever they can. Like I said, there was that one guy, I think Jim and I were talking about it. There was this one guy I was watching, and he was watching the trailer, and he's giving his expert opinion on the trailer. And he's watching it on a Switch, which, okay, whatever. You're doing it for the whatever. Anyway, he's watching it and he's commenting on, yeah, Eric said this and that and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets sucked into the trailer. He's watching it and he gets sucked in. And I'm like, ha, ha, ha. He got you. He got you. He pulled you into the story whether you liked it or not. And I thought, yeah, that's awesome. And then at the end, he like shuts off the video really fast because it's like, he's like, okay, guys, I'll catch you later. And he just shuts it off. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you didn't have anything else to say. It's because you couldn't, it literally blew him away. Blown him away. You subscribers in chat, You can use the new blown away emote. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Bucho gives me crap for saying blown away. I said it like 12 times in one video, and he said the only thing is you said blown away too much, and I said I'm gonna use that. So anyway, there you go, blown away. But anyway,
well, can I comment on comments?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know.
Was that it?
We all want feedback, right? We want open debate. I'm like such a free speech person. I think that's the most important thing in the world, honestly, to be able to say your piece, whether you're right or wrong.
Right.
I think in our culture today. So if I'm a free speech guy, I'm very much for open debate. Then I want to see what people are saying, right? But so much of our culture is just troll culture, and I understand it. I like it. I do it myself. I think it's funny. But for the person who's trying to make a serious point or to do something earnestly, oh my God, it just wears you down.
Well,
because they're like people that have no skin in the game, no investment whatsoever, feel like their opinion is real important and really valid. And unless you were there in the struggle, it's not. I mean, it's really not. I mean, it's so easy to say, and I've learned a lot. It's so easy to say, this should have been this. This should have been like this. This should have been treated like this or said like this. But it's a complete hindsight 2020 thing. When you're in, you just, I think when you're creating, when you're making, when you're a maker, you have to do things and just put them out there.
Right.
And you have to learn how to distill the comments and feedback. And that's tough. I mean, that's a completely separate process from creating, is distilling, what did I do wrong? It's like an editor's job. And a lot of times when you're a single sole creative, like, Billy and Jay, their little, team, or you're writing a comic, or you're doing a YouTube video, or you're doing, whatever it is, that you're like the sole sort of, well, I can't pay anyone. I don't have any money to pay anyone. So I can't hire an editor. I can't hire a writer. I'm just doing my thing.
Right.
So you'll evolve and get better, based on feedback, based on, your growth or lack of growth, those two things, but along the way you'll get and to put those aside and filter those out is so hard. But a lot of it is irrelevant because people, they view your content, it flashes across their Twitter, or it flashes across their Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or whatever. They see a little bit of it and they need to throw in like a monkey throwing poo. They need to that was garbage. And you're like, oh, thank you. I spent 3 weeks on that garbage.
Right. And it makes you wonder, it's like, how many of those hateful comments, how much have they contributed to anything? Have they contributed? Have they not just contributed like money wise? I'm talking about to the kind of the meta of the world. Like, you haven't contributed anything. All you've done is thrown, like you said, you threw your crap in the middle of the ring, and it doesn't really do anything. And just like what Billy was saying, he said it's not the honest feedback that concerns me; it's the lies they spread. And he said that somebody is going around saying that we only shot in 2 weeks and only spent $5,000. Why? And it's only because they want to try to get some views.
Yeah, I know it's bad. I mean, stuff like that is just like, what is the point of this?
And I would,
it's like, oh God,
Well, and then and then they're saying, Well, Kevin Smith made Clerks for $27,000. Yeah, 25 years ago.
Yeah, I
25
know.
years ago. And it was in black and white. The camera barely moved. I mean, Clerks is not a cinematography, experience here.
Yeah.
It's literally set the camera on a tripod and shoot it. Now,
Yeah.
does it work? Yes, because the story and the plot and all that stuff works. But you couldn't shoot this movie for $27,000. There's no way. At least the
No.
way that oh, look, here Eric's here. So hey, Eric.
Eric.
I mean, it's just ridiculous, and it's, again, I know where Billy's coming from, and I understand, but man, I just, it's like what have you done?
I agree. I agree. I mean, I'm in business and I'm on social media and I have to deal with comments from people, and it's like sometimes it's like a struggle. It's like, do I respond to this or do I delete it? Because sometimes there's just responding to it gives credence to it, whether or not they have any valid points or not. And it's so tough. But I think as I don't know. I mean, everybody responds to it. No one is immune from it.
Right.
How they respond to it is a different, interesting discussion. I mean, you could go into the psychology of how people respond to comments creatively. I mean, people have painted paintings in response to people's comments. It's happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a whole part of our history and culture is based on people's responses to slights or insults. So that's just part of our human nature. But I think as a creative, you definitely, I think the key to doing things right and to making things entertaining and fun, the things that have really worked have been when someone has a passion for something and they will not be deterred. They won't be stopped. This is my vision and I am going to do it. God damn it, I'm going to do it. And no one's going to stop me. And I think that's the best stuff or the worst stuff. Yeah, it doesn't matter, but it's the stuff that's interesting. It's of note. You're going to look at it, whether it's tragically bad or just epically good. I mean, it's the vision of the artist to say, no. I know what I want. I know what I want. And in those situations, you try to facilitate those people if you can to help them.
Right.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, it's like, to me, it's like, I think, I mean, I don't want to get into like crazy Star Wars movie talk here, but look at the prequels. It's what George wanted. Now, it wasn't, a lot of people were like, wow, maybe you should have had somebody go over, the dialogue a little bit. Maybe you should, you know what I mean? There are criticisms, but you can't deny that the world building that he did in those movies are, I mean, leaps and bounds better than the sequel trilogy as a whole.
Well, and I'll say this to Billy, and he's heard it a million times, and he already knows this, but the hardships made Star Wars a better movie.
Yeah.
The struggles made that movie better for everyone. I mean, we all know it now. We've all read the books. We've watched the videos, the YouTube commentary. We know that George Lucas struggled to make Star Wars happen, and there's so many elements of that it could have been a tremendous flop if certain key things wouldn't have happened to make, because at a certain point, the movie was a disaster and was going to fail. He'd spent all the money, or just keep it as simple as possible. He spent all the money. He needed more. He wasn't there with the special effects. He had a vision for that, for the future. He doubled down. He got more money from the studio. He went in and got personally involved with the special effects himself. and just pulled it all together and and then hired a great editor, which I believe was Marsh Lucas, but I can't remember exactly. But anyway,
Yeah.
just just Google editor of Star Wars. You're going to see some great videos and commentary on that. But there was a person that took that footage and said, "This is pretty bad. This is a mess, but I'm going to make a movie out of it," and did. And stuff like that happens, and it becomes a game changer for everyone.
Right.
Everything changes because it's such a hit, and everything, the technology, the way movies are made, the whole blockbuster model that we understand in movie, all of that.
All
Um,
the marketing, all
and
the
it would have
toys.
it would have went the other way. I mean, so for anyway, I guess the story I'm trying to tell is that when a person doesn't face any adversary, a devil's advocate, and I think that's very important. I think the Catholic Church actually created the devil's advocate. I just read about it not too long ago, but essentially, and I'm just making up stuff, but you can Google everything. Just Google devil's advocate. But I believe the understanding was that the church in a trial situation or a debate would designate a, uh, a cardinal or somebody as devil's advocate. No one else is taking the other side. Well, somebody has to, right? In the interest of justice
Hmm.
or fairness or truth, someone has to take up the other side. So I think what happened with Lucas was that um, he didn't have that
You mean on
with
the
the pre.
prequels? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he could do whatever he wanted.
It was his money.
Yeah, and all of his producers were gone from the previous you know trilogy, and I think he was surrounded by yes men, which is dangerous.
Right.
I mean, you look at any celebrity that has like crashed and burned, you just trace the origins of that back to them. Well, they got in the bubble, and no one could say no.
Right. I think even Spielberg, to a
So
certain extent, has. It's almost like he's put roadblocks in front of himself in a lot of ways to try to get. It's almost like a weird formula of just bad things happening. Like the shark not working. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Just
yeah,
all kinds of things that happen on a movie set that kind of lead you down to this path of, okay, we've got to figure out how to get around this creatively. We've got to put our brains together and figure this out. And it's
yeah,
almost like in a lot of ways he's tried to do that almost artificially. Like it's like it's one of the things that you hear a lot of musicians do that. They say, well, I'm going to use one sound for the whole song. I'm just going to use one sound and see if I can make it work. And I mean, it's a weird thing to see. It's almost like you see, okay, well, this is what you get. This sort of the prequels there's a lot of crazy ideas in there.
yeah,
There's a lot of crazy ideas, and that is I guess the product of not having anybody to go. Um, it's like there's a lot of weird things like that. It's
yeah,
just it's almost fun to watch. It's like I'd almost want to like how like they don't have this much anymore. The multi-angle stuff on like Blu-rays and DVDs. They don't
oh
use
yeah, yeah,
they don't use that enough. But I would
yeah,
love to have like a multi-angle of Star Wars of like it's them sitting in the sound room or looking at special effects or whatever, and you see one guy go, like how many times does that happen when they're watching this stuff? Because some of it
yeah,
is way out there, but I think Billy's done a really. I don't think Billy's going to get enough credit in a lot of ways for the things that the challenges that we had to kind of overcome and the solutions. I mean, Billy, Rudy. I mean, gosh, everybody on set. there were a lot of things. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the Game Chaser stuff yet, because I want to talk about Pop Culture Quest first. But there's still I don't know, but it's weird. It's almost like you can't.
Yeah, I again, adversity does sometimes, and that's what's great about us as human beings, as creatives, is that the solutions that can happen. I'm just going to throw this out there. I just read this on Twitter today. There was I can't remember. I retweeted it or liked it, maybe both. There was some video game, some Atari 2600 game that one of the game sites hired a bunch of people, or solicited a bunch of people to try and figure out the code of the game, and it's a maze game. They can't figure it out. They can't figure out how the game designer or programmer, the initial game designer, figured out with the limited memory that you had in a 2600 game chip, how they created a maze that someone could just go on and on and on and on and on forever in the game. And somebody wrote a code that would, all with ones and zeros, that would allow the maze to create itself in real time on that limited memory. They can't recreate that shit.
That's pretty awesome.
They talked to the original programmer. He said he was drunk and had a vision and figured it out. And he said, I can't reproduce it for the life of me. I think that's incredible. But it just shows you that when you're up against the wall, it's like, I don't know. It's like we reach into a fourth dimension. We're capable. And who knows who's capable at any one time in any given situation to like leap to a level that's like, all right, I just figured some shit out, that like some cosmic universal thing just happened in my brain just now. It opened a gateway. It was tiny and it closed. But that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it does show you that kind of the potential that only adversity, and that, and it's just sort of like anything else in life. It's like if you want to be good at something, you are going to have to pound yourself, whatever it is, like cooking, lifting weights, creating a comic book, drawing, writing. You just have to work and work and work and work through it. And you might, in that process, open a moment, a gateway, where you figure something out, or you create something very special and very magical. And it's not guaranteed. And that's the thing, is people that don't understand process, is that you have to just keep doing stuff, because you don't know what works. You're creating, you're working, you're doing things, and then something will like click, and other people will identify with it. They'll like latch onto it and go, that was cool. I'm into this. I'm down with that. And that to me, I think the key is, assume writer's block is not real, assume artist block is not real, and just keep doing your thing. Some of it's going to be total garbage.
Yeah, it's like
live with it. Like, live with it and just go, yeah, it sucked, dude. Check out this new one though.
Right. It's
like it's much better, right? And you can take criticism or leave it. Like, you're probably your harshest critic.
Yeah.
So why do you even need to read comments? And like, I only like, and you're probably the same way. The advice of a close friend, someone that cares for you, really matters. Like, dude, you're embarrassing yourself. Okay. I listened to that from a close friend or a family member, right? But some joker on YouTube that
well, and
whatever.
I don't, it's kind of funny. You touched on something with the the lack of, or the a creator tries a lot of different things, right? Before they get to the one thing that they want to release or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand that. The haters don't understand that. And the haters don't understand that the criticism that they're giving you, sometimes you've already gone through it yourself. You've already
Yeah.
been your harshest critic. So go away. You know, you're just you're a little gnat. You don't even matter. But then what's even funnier is that they don't understand, because they've never created anything. They don't understand the process, and they don't understand what it takes to make a movie the way we did. You know, that I mean, you know, whatever the budget ends up being the final number, it's really a lot bigger than that. Because I mean, think about all the people, and I'm not just talking about me, but think about the people that worked for free on this movie. Think about Leon.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, think about these people that came to do this just because they wanted to help.
Yeah.
You know,
There
and
was
that,
fun.
if you
There was
try to put,
fun.
yeah, if you try to put a price tag on that, I mean, whatever it ends up being, it was a bargain. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's insane to think about. Like, just thinking about, like, I have no idea what Leon makes on a regular movie. But what would he have charged? He was the supervising, he was basically a team of one doing what he did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No, no, no. I know it was amazing. Like on a daily basis, I was like impressed with like the number of people that just came to help. They weren't
yeah,
getting paid. They were just like there to like do something to contribute to the cause. And so I was just like, man, this is awesome. And that's what you want, because I think anything that has resonance that will will carry through, that will matter for at least a while. I don't want to make any assumptions, because it's not Shakespeare or whatever. It's not Star Wars. I don't know. There's something in anything that you could create that could resonate with people. You don't know. Today we conflate that with going viral. Why does something go viral? Well, I mean, there's a lot of factors, but the essence of why something would be appreciated by a lot of people is that there's something that they identify with, that they find humorous or interesting or entertaining or intellectually stimulating. So, uh, you know, you, you, I mean, AI is going to reverse engineer all this stuff. So, going viral won't matter soon, because computers will tell us how to go viral, and they may start granting everyone 15 minutes of fame, and it won't matter.
hmm,
It won't matter, because it's just ones and zeros. It'll just be pre-programmed, and then life becomes very uninteresting. So I think failures matter, and flopping matters. I think you have to fail for people to understand. Well, you never want to do that again, you know. But they have historic value in a lot of cases. Things that didn't work sometimes last a lot longer than things that did. I mean, what was the top movie of 2019? I don't know. I really don't know.
yeah.
I
I
may never revisit that movie ever again, even though it was the top grossing movie of 2019 that everybody had to see, or the Academy Award winners of the last 10 years. I couldn't name them,
yeah.
but
There's
you know
probably some damn good movies in there, but it's not. They're not
yeah,
all.
and my like or dislike has no merit on those films whatsoever. My point is that you can do something that is a flop or failure that actually could have significant value going forward, for people. It's just, again, my point is, if you're a creator, if that's your passion, create. Like, you won't be fulfilled doing anything else. Just do it. As bad as it is, as good as it is, just keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean that's very inspirational to me, but also it's also kind of a reason why they need to go ahead and release the original trilogy unaltered, so we can see some of those
Yeah, yeah,
bad effects, some of those bad rotoscoping and the, you know what I mean, all of that stuff. Let it shine, because I mean that's you built your entire career off of that movie and those mistakes. Those mistakes, people fell in love with them. So
yeah.
live with, I mean, look, I'm not gonna I've always been one of those people that think that no one should be able to touch a movie or a piece of art, music, whatever, unless it's the artist themselves. But I
Yeah.
totally also understand that the people that I looked up to when I was a kid, Ben Burt, well, of course, nothing really changed for Ben Burt stuff. But Ben Burt was like my hero as a kid. He was my
Mhm.
number one hero because it was like, he's the guy that put it all together. He's the guy that, without those sounds, that movie would not have worked the way it did. Without the R2D2 beeps, without the blaster sound, the lightsaber sound, none of those things would have been as cool. And so for me, he was always my hero, and I got to meet him, and it was awesome. I mean it, and it's one of my favorite things about meeting some of these people is that someone like Ben Burt, nobody looks at him. Most people don't look at him as a hero like I did. Like I
Mhm.
met him at a convention here in Dallas, and just real quick, I don't want to shoot off onto this thing, but the whole thing was being able to meet him. And when I asked him I can't remember exactly the question, but it was along the lines of, when you create a sound, do you watch the film first and you get an idea, and do you already have something in mind, or do you say, okay, I know that I can use this sound that I created and put effect on it and all that stuff? And as I'm asking the question, his face lit up, because it was like somebody who cares and somebody who understands. And I mean, we could really say that in a way, Order 42 started way back then. That was 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I met Dave Filoni at
Mhm.
that same convention, which is cool. Um, but it's one of those things where, you know, these people did some amazing work, and some of it you don't get to see it anymore. And that's
Yeah.
that's a shame. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad I have the best possible quality video. I have the DVD, the unaltered DVD one. But it's, you kind of want to see that in 4K, and all its, bumps and bruises. Show it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you make some great points, especially about, people like, Ben Burt. Is when you're making a film, you try to bring in just the most creative, interesting, hardworking people you possibly can, and that it becomes kind of like, like a CEO, like a director, becomes like a CEO of a company, and you just try and get the best guys, or the guys with the most interesting ideas. They might be total flakes and might ruin you, but you try and bring in people that are like, oh, that's good, ah, man, yes, and so I felt like our sets were filled with like people with good ideas.
Yeah.
um like we had a lot of people like contributing, on a like day to day, minute by minute basis, like, hey, how about this approach now, for the director, a lot of it's noise. I mean, you might
Yep.
even not hear good ideas because you've got so many things that you're trying to accomplish. It's overwhelming. I don't really want to direct a film. I feel like I don't have the emotional capacity and the intellectual capacity to do all those things. The the interpersonal interactions with people that you have, the conversations with actors that you have to like get into the scene and get into the what's going on in your head and all that kind of stuff, and then dealing with all the logistical stuff. Fortunately we had Rudy, and Rudy really ran a tight ship and got a lot of, just like everything was kind of in line, and things were taken care of. and so we didn't have, Billy didn't have to deal with as much of that. But again, I say that he probably had to deal with like 50 things an hour that I didn't even contemplate that people were bringing to him or whatever. But you try to hire people that are bringing things to the project. It's like, oh, dude, you've got a vision for this. You know what we're trying to do. Let's, jump in. I want to get you involved in this. You're going to take us in all new directions and things like that. And I think the Wild West of Star Wars was like that. Like Lucas brought in a bunch of guys that he thought were doing interesting things in like commercials and things like that, like claymation and whatnot. He'd look at reels and stuff and go, "Ooh, this guy's doing cool stuff, interesting stuff. Cool. I want him on the picture. This is interesting what he's doing." Or he worked with them in film school. So you want to bring a lot of diverse ideas and everything, but then at the same time, as a director, you end up having to be a dictator and telling a lot of people no and fuck off, and we're doing it this way. And I didn't take things like that personal, because I'd already had a little bit of a background in that industry, and so when someone said no, or he said no, we're not going that direction, I didn't get all pissed off and just like walk off like a diva or whatever. And that's what people have to keep, that they have to keep that in mind. It's like, dude, that's a great idea. That would have been super like 30 days ago.
Right. Because then that changes.
Great idea. We can't do it.
Right. That sounds almost like, honestly, there was a couple of scenes in Rise of Skywalker that made me do that. That made me say, that's a great idea, and they never should have done it. It was, but anyway, I just want to say, it's funny. Bucho said, he said, "I'm with Rob, but let's be honest, McClunky is a stroke of genius."
Yeah.
And then he said, and then Octavia said holiday special in 4K. Jim said holiday special in 8K or Riot, and then 8K VR interactive experience pay-per-view. And then it was just they're just going on with all kinds of man, the holiday special. I don't know.
People think they want the holiday special, and I think we need it. They don't want it.
It's so bad. It's like the Ewok movies.
I watched it in real time as a kid. I was like, man, this is crap. I mean, the whole Boba Fett scene and the scene where actually Luke Skywalker is like in the hangar in his X-wing outfit. That was it. Like the Boba Fett cartoon and the rest of it was like, I watched it because I watched everything Star Wars or sci-fi at that time. And if it was like, you got TV Guide back then, right?
Yeah.
That's how you like programmed your whole freaking life. You had no alerts, no nothing.
I had the store cable little.
Yeah, you got the TV Guide.
Yeah.
I've got one right here. I'll get it because we just need to see one because some people won't know. Oh wait, this is actually an HBO Guide.
See, I had one for store cable, and it was that way. It's how I yeah, it was a lot like that. And I remember what I used to do is when it came in the mail, I used to highlight all the times that Star Wars or Empire or whatever would be on, and then I would write it on a calendar, and I'd go 8:50 or 12:20, and I would.
They give you this little guide, and they tell you what time these movies were playing, and so the TV Guide would say Star Wars Holiday Special, and whenever it played, Thanksgiving, I think, or whatever. So you planned your whole week around, I'm not going anywhere. You had to tell your mom, please, can we not go to the PTA meeting or whatever it was, Boys Cub Scouts, because the Star Wars Holiday Special's on, and I really have to be there for that. It's going to be great.
See, I only had seen growing up. I'd heard of it. I'd heard it mentioned many, many times and how awful it was. But I'd only watched the Boba Fett thing. And I was like, yeah, it's not that bad. And then I guess it was probably, I don't know, it's probably 15 years ago or something. It was back when the internet really started to blow up. As far, man, it was more than that, probably 20 years. When the downloading was just insane. Napster was king. Kazaa was king. You know what I mean? Back then, I downloaded it and watched it, and yeah, I'm forever changed. It's almost like the makeup lady was confused and thought Mark Hamill was Carrie Fisher because he looked so. I mean, let's just say it. He was damn beautiful.
Yeah.
He was. It was shocking. It was weird. It was like
Yeah.
this is a weird time.
What's funny is, because I know Mark and I talked to him about it, he doesn't like it and he doesn't want anyone to watch it. It's not like,
I don't
it's
blame
like
him.
he doesn't want it banned. He's like, it's just has no value. It's really bad.
Yeah,
And
that was a weird one. Now let's get in.
it,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was going to say it's probably the first corporate cash in for Star Wars. If you want to mark something down, it's
Yep.
just like, and I think everyone regrets it. Like everyone involved regrets it. So, just sometimes the cash in's not worth it.
It's weird because even though I think that there is some value to to parts of the sequel trilogy, what you're hitting on is you should be doing it to make art. I can't really say that they were doing it to make art. And that's one of those things where it starts to sting a little bit when you think of it that way. And if you try to, and it's like, because the one thing, okay, you've talked to me enough that I'm a pretty positive guy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a pretty positive guy. I like things to be positive because I dealt with almost dying. So the negative crap is behind me. I'm trying to look at the positive. And I'm sitting there watching these movies and I'm going, there's wow. You know what I mean? And it's like it stings a little bit when you start to really think about it. And it's like, it's just not there. It's not there. And I just hope that they can get it, because I feel like even to a certain extent, Solo was only there to appease Lawrence Kasdan. And Rogue One was there because John Knoll comes in with this. It's really a cool idea. Like, what if we take that line from the original Crawl and we make a movie out of it? Yeah, it's a great idea. Let's do it. And it turned out being pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's got its problems, but it's still pretty good. But then, anyway, we've talked Star Wars. I mean, gosh, I've talked Star Wars. I feel like every show in the last 3 or 4 shows has been like, we rant on Star Wars for 15, 20 minutes, and then we get back to the real thing. Anyway, so Pop Culture Quest. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to plug it for you because everyone needs. I mean, if you're a fan of collecting anything, I mean, I'm not a huge collector. I will just say that right now. I'm not. I collect things, like specific things that I like. Like I love that Stormtrooper helmet. It was cheap, and I love it. Yes, I love all that stuff. It's like I love all that stuff, but I don't want to store it. I'm more pragmatic, when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's awesome. Look at that. But so you come up with this idea, you bring it to, Howard Kazanjian gets involved, who's himself a legend, right? I mean, he's one of those people that he's like a tie to old Hollywood too, which is awesome. With Hitchcock, I mean, didn't he do he was like assistant director on Family Plot, right?
Yeah.
And I love that movie. I'm a Hitchcock dork. I love Hitchcock. I love old movies. I love them all. I just love movies, really. And that comes from my aunt, I think. My aunt was really big in silver screen type stuff and sitting me down and going, you know what? Here's this movie from 1937 or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to watch this. It's in black and white. There's no color. And then I sit down. I'm like, man, this is really good. I loved him. So you got Howard Kazanjian involved. He brings in Mark Hamill. And because of just the way the Game Chasers movie came together, Pop Culture Quest came together into this thing. Now, how close was it to what you'd originally envisioned?
Well, first it was a toy show. I wanted to do a toy collecting show. and that was just because I collected toys. That's all I wanted to do. And it was maybe the first time I'm saying this, I can't remember, but I mean, the Game Chasers were really influential on what I wanted to do with the show. I mean, uh, they were doing a retro game, collecting, chasing show. I was watching it at that time, so it had a big I mean, when I met Bill and Jay in person the first time, 2014, I'd already met Mark and was talking to Mark about the show, but it wasn't anywhere close to even happening, because when they were doing Game Chasers at the beginning, it was new. That was like, there was not like, I mean, people are like, GOAT and OG. And I mean, like, if you're talking about YouTube channels about collecting games, that's it.
Right.
I know there was other guys, doing it at that time, but they weren't doing it like yeah, we're actually going to locations and just filming stuff, whether it works out or not type stuff. Because American Pickers was around, and Storage Wars was around, and stuff like that had already hit and was happening. And people were aware of it, but that was all very produced. We didn't, we were kind of naive thinking that those shows were real. They're totally not real. Like, they're not real. So, and I know that now, but yeah, they were filming real things, just like going to a GameStop or whatever, and just taking the camera in and filming whatever they found. And that was fun. I liked it. I just liked the hit or miss of it. Like, it could be a, complete failure. That was a great episode. It was like funny
Right.
that they failed and they were making fun of each other and stuff, and farts. So farts. So
It's like
it did.
70% farts, that show.
Yeah. And so it really, like, I started thinking, well, how come there can't be a toy show, like a toy show? So, but I went the traditional route. I'm not an on-screen talent. I never consider myself someone that wants to act or be on camera a lot. I'm not real good at it. I'm never comfortable. Like, when the camera light turns on, I'm always like, eh. And so there's been occasions where I've been in productions, I've been in films and different things where I kind of just muddled through it, but I don't consider myself watchable or exciting or interesting. So I've always thought more behind the camera, like, how do we make this work, and how can we sell this, and who would watch it? And, so that was where I was coming from. I didn't want to go around filming myself buying toys, because I just didn't think of myself in that way. I thought of myself in the way of, well, I'll be someone that can make this happen. I'll produce it or whatever. So that was always my approach to, like, so I went to networks with the show idea, like, it's a toy show, this guy. And then Toy Hunter happened. And so that shifted things around. I was like, well, okay, so some guy did it, like some network decided to bite on that and sell a show about chasing toys. Well, that's all fake too. That was all fake. So I know Jordan, and I know the people involved in the show, and I know the people that were on the show, and they're real people, and they really do collect toys, but they script everything.
Right.
So and they insert things in the show. They'll be like, well, we want the show to be about X, so we'll put X in it, whether this person has it or not. And that, so I didn't want to create a fake show either. I wanted to do something different. And networks, like, totally just, they didn't get it. Even with Mark Hamill involved, even with Howard involved, they were like, you can't. Can it be about the value? No. That we didn't, none of those things.
Well,
so we didn't want it to be fake. We wanted it to be interesting. And Mark is always about information, because he's an info nerd. And anyone that has followed Mark long enough or read anything or watched anything that he's talked about on the topic, he loves data. He loves facts. He's a trivia buff, and so he wants to share like if you tell him something interesting about something pop culture related, like he gets totally sucked into it. He's like, oh, hey, what are you talking about? I hadn't heard that before. Tell me that story. It's like really interested, like genuinely interested. So that's what we kind of wanted the show to be, kind of like just his personality in a TV show. So, that's what it ended up being. It was just sort of like his personality in a show as much as we possibly could.
Well, it's weird. It's like I think the reason that like I guess the executives, didn't really get it is because they're only interested in the destination, where you end up. But
Yeah.
for many collectors, I mean, I think you'll agree with this. It's the journey. The hunt
Yeah, there, there,
is part of the
there
fun.
there's a lot of disappointing days in the life of a collector, just like the life of anyone that endeavors to do anything.
Right.
So you could go out and say, I'm going to go fix this car today. I need to fix this car and get paid for fixing it. And you can go out there and spend the whole day and not solve the problem and not get paid,
Right.
And so that happens, any endeavor. It's like you go out, you say, oh, I'm going to hit 10 flea markets today. Surely I'm going to find something. And there's those days you don't find anything. You
But
find nothing.
but how many times, because this is something, and this is probably why I'm not much of a collector, is because I can't remember what it was that it was what I wanted to do, and this was, I don't even know, 25 years ago, something like that. It's before I got married. I wanted to collect all of the original Marvel Transformers run because I loved it. I had all the collected things, but I didn't have the actual issues. I went and started getting the issues, and I got them home. They're all like the card back and everything, and I'm like all excited. And it was weird. It's like I was excited to find it and to get it for cheap or whatever, but then I felt nothing. Like actually getting it wasn't as fun as searching for it.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird for, at least that's what it was for me. So I just said, you know what? I'm not going to search.
I totally get it. I mean, you know, lots of people watching this, listening to this, they play the lottery, they go to casinos. They like to win. I mean, gambling it's kind of an adrenaline rush. You get endorphins.
Yeah.
So you end up sort of seeking endorphins in the ways that you know how to get them. So some people it's drugs, it's alcohol, whatever. Some people it's like gambling, like playing the slots, playing poker, playing blackjack, blah blah blah. Some people they get their endorphins from like going after searching for games or searching for toys. Hey, I'm telling you, it's a rush. There is not, I mean, you can replace anything. I mean, you can say sex, whatever you want, but that endorphin rush is all the same physically.
Yeah.
The stimuli is the same, and whatever it is that like kind of gets you there, you end up trying to you're going out there for endorphin hits. That's your flavor, that's your choice of endorphin hits. Like, well, my thing is I like to go to strip clubs. Ha. I like to go look for comic books.
Right.
And they're like, oh, what a loser. And it's like, dude, I get my endorphins off of it. I mean, I love it, so it's your thing.
Yep.
And so you chase that, and the days that you don't get the endorphin hit, pretty rough. You're like, well, I went out there all day long, didn't find anything. I got in an argument with somebody. It was a crappy day, had a flat tire,
Yep.
But then there's those days when you find little Samson or whatever, freaking,
Right. And see, the going back to the show though, I will say that the moment that it really didn't take long. the first episode. But it was a moment where I went, man, I would have killed to be there right now. So I'm telling you guys, it's
Which one is it?
That's the Jim Lee episode.
Okay.
So guys, it's $7.99 on any platform that you can think of. Well, any big platform. It's on all the big ones. So Amazon,
Okay.
I looked it up. I just made sure Google Play's got it. iTunes has got it. It's $7.99. You should totally watch it. It's awesome. It's so much fun. And this is somebody that's, I think, excuse me, I think collectors would love it, of course. But I mean, gosh, I'm not that much of a collector. And I enjoyed every episode. It was so good. Like, so I have a couple of, if you'll indulge me, I have a couple of selfish questions that I want to ask you. Were you there for Jim Lee drawing that picture?
Yeah. I was like literally standing like 2 feet away from the whole thing. I was always like, if something interesting was happening, people would have to like physically move me. They'd go, you're in the picture.
You're in the shot. Get out of it.
But I was on the show, I was like a creator and a boss, so I would just do things until people would say, yeah, you're kind of a disruption. So because it was just fun. And I had met Jim Lee. I'd worked with Jim Lee professionally, in a small capacity before then. So I wasn't like head over heels. I wasn't like completely enamored with him because I but Mark and Jim at DC Comics headquarters, I was like pretty overwhelmed in the moment. I was like, dude, this is like history, because there's these two DC icons, because, Jim Lee as a co-publisher in his run on Batman and Superman and Justice League and everything that he's done at DC, and all he's contributed to comics in general. And then Mark, who's the voice of the Joker, those two had worked together too and had met professionally, but they had never worked on camera together. Right. And the show was totally made up as we went along. I think I went into that a little bit with Matt on his podcast, in how little time. Like I told you, we worked on trying to sell this series for years and wrote scripts, and we did little demos and all kinds of things to try and get people to buy this. And then, Star Wars happened, and then Last Jedi happened, and Mark was overseas, and then someone bought it and said, do it. Here's the money. Do it now.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, well, like Mark's shooting this movie overseas.
This movie.
Yeah. And so we were like, okay, so as soon as he gets back, because that's the thing, anytime anyone commits money, we experienced it with the game shows. They want return as soon as possible, right, on their money. So if you contributed, $12 for a digital download or $35 for a Blu-ray or whatever, you want to see it. You want it. It's like, why can't I have it now? Like if I pre-order a game, I want the game. I want it. And it's like, so that's how it was. It was like, guys, give it to us now. And so we were like, okay. So Mark took a week off when he got back from shooting Last Jedi, and we just we're shooting on, let's see, we didn't shoot on the Monday that we started. He came into the offices, we sat down, we talked. This is the first time we're meeting in person, like the whole team, like the whole production team, like our production team. You know what it's like? You're all coming together for the first time, right? No one knows anyone, really. No one's, some people know people, some people don't. A lot of people are, don't know what to expect. So that was the same. We all got together and we're like, this Wednesday we're going to be filming, guys.
Wow.
So it was just like, yeah, let's all gel. Let's all get on the same page. And here's what we're doing Wednesday. We're going to film at DC Comics. And so, yeah, it was all like thrown together. And we were like working on the next week, just like we were on Game Chasers. We were working on the next day, the day before, like always, just one day, try and stay ahead. And that's what we were doing. The same thing. We were just like, okay, where do we film next week? All right, better line everybody up. Better have everything all, got to have the location secure. Got to have the talent, got to have all the releases. That's what we were doing. And it was just like thrown together. So that, that's when you have to have like key people. You have to have like smart people know what they're doing, experienced people in key positions that are like, yeah, I got this. We know what we're doing. We do this. You need me to call like 100 people and get like releases and permission and blah blah. That's what I do.
Well, see, I want to get into that when we get to the actual Game Chasers talk, but I have two more little things about Pop Culture Quest, because I'm telling you, man, I just really enjoyed it. And it was like, this is like, at first I was like, 13 minutes, 12-minute episode, 11, you know what I mean? And I was sitting there going, this probably isn't going to be much. I had no expectations other than I knew Mark Hamill was in it, and I knew you were going to see pop culture stuff. I didn't want the episodes to end. I was so I mean, I hope that that's a compliment. I loved it so much that I just wanted them to keep going. Like the one that, again, another one of my selfish little things, Bob Burns. Holy crap. That King Kong armature, I knew he's one of those guys that, if you follow movies at all and you do it as long as I have, because I mean, I have Cinefantastiques and Starlogs, and you know what I mean? I've been a big fan of movies for a very, very, very long time.
Those guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know all of that stuff. I've read them cover to cover. I love them. I love them. I love them. I love the making of movies. So Bob Burns is kind of legendary. And the first time that I'd really gotten to learn about him is when Peter Jackson invited him out on King Kong, and he brought the armature. And it was just... So my question is, did you get to hold it?
Oh yeah. That was one of the cool things about Bob, and very, very counterintuitive. Very counterintuitive. Because you know how I was watching some video on YouTube, or no, Facebook, can't remember. Someone was handling a comic book, like a vintage comic book, in the video, and they weren't wearing gloves. Oh, people got pissed. They got pissed.
And Bob's got it all just there.
No. Bob let you hold it, touch it. He was just, you didn't have to put gloves on. Because this started out, and I think a lot of times it's sort of like, just be true to yourself. Bob started collecting props when he was like 14 years old, because he lived in Hollywood. His parents some member of his family knew someone that built movie props and introduced Bob to him as a young boy, because he was into, making things or whatever. And he became this guy's kind of basically apprentice at that young age, a prop builder in Hollywood, which was very blue collar, and it still is.
Right.
It's just guys that they know how to make things. They know carpentry. They know how to weld. They know how to sculpt. It's not always just artistes. It's guys that have practical skills. I can make stuff. You want me to make a wall that looks like rocks? I know how to do that. And you need guys like that. They're just sort of artisans, it's just sort of like, yeah, I know. It's not the Sistine Chapel, but I can make you something that'll look real, And so, Bob befriended as a young man a guy like that, that made props for a studio. Not a glamorous job. Props weren't worth millions of dollars. And he gave him the Wolfman cane head. And that started his whole journey. And I held that thing in my hand, and he was glad to give it to me to hold it in my hand. It wasn't in a case. It was sitting on his desk, Here, hold it, touch it.
I just
So that was really cool. And I went through his whole display and could touch anything I wanted to, pick up anything I wanted to. And the thing is with Bob is if he trusts you, it's fine.
right.
And all of that is given to him. I mean, I know he's bought, some of this stuff,
Yeah, he's
but
acquired
a lot of it was given to him by the filmmakers because they know he's like an alpha fan, like a fan's fan. He goes way back to the beginning of one of the first, in rock, they call them groupies,
Yeah.
but he was a fan.
I just
And became famous for being a fan. Even though he did work professionally in the industry, he never became a big name in the industry. He never became a power player, but he was known by everyone as a fan. Just the other day, I read they said that the Nostromo came up, because Bob owns the Nostromo, and someone said, "Well, Fox destroyed all the props," and I was like, "Actually, no, they gave them all to Bob Burns. They just gave them to him."
I love it.
Like a truck. They just wheeled a big truck up to his house and dropped a cargo container full of alien props in his front yard.
I love that
you
one.
Can have them, right?
Huh? What?
He just said, "Have them." Yeah.
I love that they just basically, and he just had it under a tarp in his yard.
Animals living in it and stuff. I mean, just crazy. But it wasn't. Again, you have to always consider things within the time period.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. People, to them, they were paying to store it. No one wanted to buy it. So it was just sort of like, well, this dude wants it, so give it to him.
It reminds me of, it's weird. I guess it's just dependent upon what you value. You know what I mean? Because Ewan McGregor, I remember it was 2000. I want to say it was 2002 or 2001, and it was so we shot Moulin Rouge and Attack of the Clones back to back, and when Attack of the Clones came in, of course they wrecked all of the beautiful sets that they did on Moulin Rouge. And of course, there was no need to save them. They just, get rid of them, trash it, and move on. Right? Let's set up the next set. Let's set up the Naboo Star Cruiser or whatever is going in there. Right? And he was so angry, and I remember being kind of upset. I'm like, how dare you? Get in Lucas, or almost like getting in Lucas's face. He wasn't, but he was like, I remember being kind of irritated, thinking, why is he so upset? And then I saw Moulin Rouge, and I was like, okay, wow. That Moulin Rouge was a beautiful looking movie. And apparently they just kind of went in and was like, yeah, let's just break all this apart. And it's weird how they just don't value that stuff as much. And I mean, stuff like that, the stuff that he's got, oh my God. I feel like that could have been a 2.5 hour episode by itself. I feel like I could have sat there and listened to him tell stories about every single piece. I would have loved it.
Yeah, and we have so much more because we filmed a full 12-hour day at Bob's house.
Yeah, that's some amazing stuff.
There's so much more, but that was all like the studio choice of how to edit it and how short to make it. So hopefully someday we'll do a Blu-ray and everybody can have this extensive tour of Bob's house, which I think will be historically important.
Yeah. And I love you go into the house and it looks like a normal house, and then there's this insane museum of movie history.
Totally unassuming. You would not know.
It's awesome. It's so cool.
And the whole front of their house, because Bob and Kathy, they're, I'm guessing, late 70s, early 80s in age.
Yeah.
Totally grandma and grandpa, like, come on in, hugging and stuff, and just sit down at the little, kitchen table and have some coffee or tea and talking and looking at the family photos. Their house is completely like normal. Like everything about it's like normal, and then you open the store and it's like, here.
Now,
This is a gateway into like the world of the fantastic.
okay, I want to ask, this is something like I just thought about, and I'm like, I just realized the connection. There was like a slight, and I just don't think it's intentional. But if it is intentional, then you're a genius. Y'all are all geniuses. The way that starts, it feels like Godfather 2 when Michael Corleone is going to, can't remember his name. Crap, it's going to drive me nuts. But he goes into basically, it ends up being his, one of the guys that's trying to kill him, bump him off, but he's working with him. And he goes in his house, and the wife, oh, Michael, how you doing? She gives him a hug, and then he takes him back into the back room, and there he is sitting there watching baseball. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Yeah.
Was that intentional, or was it not?
No.
Because it felt.
No.
I just realized it just popped in my head. I'm like, oh my god, that's just like, I can't remember his name. I was looking in chat. Maybe I was hoping somebody would say it.
No, that's funny. No, I don't. I mean, everything is done in editing.
Right.
A lot of the story happens in the edit. I mean, you're just filming. Like I said, we did a 12-hour day there. You don't really know what the narrative is, and someone creates a narrative.
Right.
An editor creates a narrative, and so we just filmed. I mean, the Godzilla. I mean, the King Kong armature. That was a centerpiece thing that we talked about. We talked about a lot of things in his house for a long time. I mean, we spent, a good hour talking about Creature from the Black Lagoon, but we didn't, that's not very highlighted in the episode. But it's like you just kind of, you end up just kind of sort of picking a through line. And it's like,
Right.
well, I think this is the most interesting story. And you tell that, but there are many other directions we could have gone and different things we could have highlighted. Things that I was personally more interested in, but I mean, it's all based on your experience in what you're into. So like someone could walk through Bob's house and 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 completely ignore, that he has like a Captain Marvel costume from the original, Republic cereal, or something like that, like really, I mean, so rare for a costume from like the 30s or the 40s to still exist
In that condition.
in that condition. That in and of itself is like miraculous. But there was, but again, I focused on, like, at one point I was digging around in his stuff and I was like, ooh, look at the shuttle from the V TV movie series from ABC. What was that? When was V on? Like the early 80s?
It was NBC and it was mid 80s. Yeah.
Mid 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was the coolest freaking thing that he had the shuttle, and I was like, oh my god.
If Billy's still here, what he can tell, because I think I was 9 and I lost I seriously went nuts the first time that the things peeled off. Yeah, that's iconic in my Billy said, I saw the pics and he came.
Yeah.
But it's
So well, what was crazy is Bob had one of his buddies, and I'm sorry, I can't remember that guy's name right now, but he was there with me, and he was like my personal tour guide. He was just like one of Bob's personal friends. He was just there hanging out, and Bob had several of his personal friends just like there hanging out. Like, hey guys, we're gonna film this thing. I'm gonna come over and just like hang out. And there was like people that were like, wow, like the guy that was the music composer for the Batman animated series was just like there hanging out. And I'd have to Google his name right now, but because I don't know him personally, he was just there and was a cool guy and told stories about Batman animated series when I was there. It just was awesome. But anyway, I would look at something in Bob's collection, and this guy, I think his name was Rick, I think. He would go, oh, that's blah blah blah. He knew everything about it.
I wonder
Yeah,
if it was.
that was built by so and so, at such and such studio, and it was used in this episode of V, and he'd tell me everything about it. It's like he just knew, like he was sort of one of the guys that Bob just sort of had in his orbit that kind of helped him keep track of everything that's in there, because it's a lot. It's like thousands and thousands of items. And he's so old school. I don't think he has an Excel spreadsheet. I don't know. He
Right.
didn't seem like he did. It was just all sort of like, well, if I don't know, maybe, Joe over here will know.
Well, I wonder if, I mean, part of it is probably that, but I wonder if part of it, I mean, I don't want to sound cynical, but it's almost like to make sure that everything's on the up and up. You know what I mean? Like, let's make sure that, this guy over here that's doing the sound doesn't put something in his pocket too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was cool. That it was just his buddies.
Yeah.
They were just there hanging around.
Right.
And I loved it.
Oh,
It
man.
was just like,
I was
and there,
so jealous.
just to kind of be alone in the room, and to be able to kind of wander around in there and look at stuff was incredible. And it was an amazing experience. And to me, I like that Bob would let you touch stuff, because it connects you. It's like, I love that movie. Touch it. I'm going to touch it. I saw that thing on screen as a kid. That alien, that clamp thing. Oh my God. Picking that up and holding it, I was like, man, it's a weird connection. It's a weird connection. And that's something that's very unique about movie props. I think from all other collectibles, I think it's like kind of, when you're talking about like real antiquities, like, collecting stuff from the Roman era and Vikings and stuff, like that's pretty cool. And I'm into that. And I have friends that are into collecting like old stuff. And it is a thrill. And I think it is cool when you have like a spear, like a Roman spearhead or something like that. That's like, wow, dude, that connection from, 1000 BC is like insane level that I'm, but you get that if you're into movies and into pop culture. To me, that's sort of like the pinnacle of collecting. You got original art like from comic books, and you've got like props from movies. It's a physical, tangible thing that is captured, in celluloid in the film, that is unique. And it's a lot of times it's one of a kind thing. It's like, this is it. This is the thing. You saw it. All the characters, all the actors interacted with this thing. This is it. It's pretty magical. And I appreciated all that when I was there. I was like, man, damn. And then when you think about just the man hours that went into creating this stuff,
Right.
to make it look real as possible. So you're touching something that, has that magical connection to the movie, but you're also touching something that's like an incredible work of art, like a one of a kind piece of art that like has like literally thousands of man hours in creating this piece right here, that fooled people into thinking it was a real spaceship or a real person or a real, monster or real whatever on screen. And it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's one of those things where there was a point, I think, in my, am I going to be a collector or whatever? That's one of the things I wanted to collect. I was like, I want an original this, an original that. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I feel like you almost have to be a caretaker for it. You know what I mean? You don't own it. You're a caretaker for it. And I don't think I have that kind of, I don't want that pressure. You know what I mean? I don't want to, you know what I mean? It's like, I want to go visit Bob Burns. I wouldn't want his collection because it would just make me nervous to have that kind of, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like, I was so jealous. I mean, of course, the first one, going into DC and then meeting Jim Lee was like, this is how the show starts? Okay, I'm in. And I mean,
Yeah.
what my plan was, I was going to watch, an episode here, an episode there. No, I watched them all the way through immediately. All 2+ hours. I mean, it's not long, but
Yeah.
still,
It's like watching a movie to watch the whole season.
I zoomed through it. That's what I was trying to do. The plan was I'm going to space this out, but it was like I couldn't stop watching it. I loved it so much. So
Yeah.
I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah. Me neither.
I mean, is there an eventual plan for it, or is it just all dependent upon the rights?
So many people. We all went back to like, back to the beginning. It was all the same arguments. We met with everybody again to do, when everything fell through with the network, the first time around, it was like we met with the same people, and then in some cases new people, because that's, man, in Hollywood, when you're at dealing with people at studios, like the overturn is just like crazy. So like you'll be talking to, some executive, who has green light, power, and 2 weeks later it'll be like someone totally different. It's like you're just like back to ground zero. But so it was all the same, like, oh, collecting show. Can it be about,
Yeah.
can it be about, and it was just like, God, okay. Well, I mean, it can be, but Mark he wants to do this show, and we all want to do this show. So we're all on the same page. Let's just do the show or not. And that's kind of his approach to it, So it's like, so we'll see. Before the pandemic happened, we were in a really good place where we thought everything's falling together to where we're going to do more. And then I don't even know. I mean, so much is in flux now in Hollywood. People that were players are not players anymore. People that had money don't have money. Studios that, I mean, there's a big dynamic shift. I have no clue what's going to shake out. In fact, I kind of just stop worrying about it. I was like, I have no control.
Yeah.
I mean, everything has changed so radically in the last 6 months. I feel like I have no control over anything except what little tiny part of my universe that I can make things happen. So I've just been like focusing on, well, what can I do? I have to earn a living. I have to, so I've just been doing that, and I don't know what's going to shake out, honestly.
Well,
Um,
I just hope, because I mean, I really, like I said, I fell in love with it. So, and it's, I mean, oh,
I just love doing it. I love the whole process of going to collections, looking at collections. I don't like, uh, I'm not like super into the process of filmmaking. I know some people are. I know some people love it. I hate it. Um, it's stressful. It feels like every decision has weight.
yeah,
You're there, we can talk about that when we get into it, but like every decision feels like it's very weighty, because you have limited time, limited funds. It feels like everything's life or death, and it's not really fun. Um, People think making films and stuff is fun. It really isn't. It's a lot of work and a lot of hard decisions
it's,
and a lot of stress. I mean, people
yeah,
argue over everything, and they're passionate too. And sometimes you're like, ooh, this person's so passionate. Maybe I should take their advice and listen to this. And sometimes you do, just because the passion carries you through the moment. Like, well, God, they're convinced this is the way to go. Halfway into it, it seems like a disaster, but they were so sure of
we're on the
themselves.
road
So
now. Yeah, it's,
we're doing it. We're doing it.
it's,
This is what we decided.
I think, I think for me, just that whole process was, well, I mean, in a lot of ways it was eye opening, but it was also like, yeah, it's weird because in a lot of ways, I felt a lot more prepared than most because I have this background of watching hours and hours and hours and hours of special features on movies,
Mm-hmm.
documentaries. I've got books on filmmaking over here that and this is way before Game Chasers. I've been into it a long, long time, which is probably part of the reason why Billy was like, maybe Rob would be good because it's like I do know a lot of those little details about stuff. Now, putting it into action, that was the fun part because it was like I had no idea how to do that. Like I didn't know what a script supervisor was at all until, Billy said, "Hey, you want to be script supervisor?" I was like, "Yes." And then I was like googling. I don't know what that means. But
Yeah.
and I mean, and so
Well,
like even producer, you being the producer of the movie was completely different than, at least in my eyes, it felt different than what I always envisioned as a producer, you know? Like your job seemed a lot bigger in a lot of way in a lot of ways. But I mean, like how would you explain that? I mean, do you think that it's very close or do you think it was much bigger than like a typical Hollywood production?
no, I mean everything is different in like a small budget film. A producer's role is just going to be whatever it needs to be and has to be to get it made. So, you know, a lot of times a producer ends up in a studio production being the liaison between the studio and the director, kind of a go between. And so that role on, when you're talking about a giant production film, uh, you're going to have, say, a Transformers movie. You're going to have 5 or 6 producers. 3 of them may never even visit the set.
Right.
So, and then the other 3 are like heavily involved, like on a day to day basis, but there's no distinction in their title.
Mm.
They're just all called producers. Some people get producer credits for trivial things, well, not, I shouldn't say trivial, for things that they didn't like have to kill themselves, like, well, I knew so and so and I thought they would like to read the script and I gave them the script and they loved it. And then now Dwayne Johnson's in the picture. So I'm a producer naturally because I gave it to Dwayne.
Mm.
Wow. I mean, in some cases that wasn't hard at all, you know. So in some cases maybe they went to heroic efforts to get Dwayne Johnson to sign on, but I've been involved in all of that stuff on the other side, like on the pre-production side, not on the production side. I was involved in a lot of like getting people attached to films, working with their people. Like I worked with Dwayne Johnson. I worked with all his people. I've worked with Brad Pitt. I worked with all his people. I know what's involved on the pre-production side, but I never really worked on a big Hollywood production on the production side until Pop Culture Quest. And I was pampered and treated very well. And,
Well,
you know,
you were the creator
I
too
didn't
though,
have to
right?
like
So,
get up at 4 a.m. and all that kind of stuff and stay there until, it was, because I was a co-creator of the show. I mean,
right.
I just got a level of deference and all that kind of stuff. But I think my role on Game Chasers as a producer in an indie production, pretty typical.
Hmm.
Like, we need someone to go pick someone up at the airport. Okay, I can do that.
It's
Pretty typical.
it
It's sort of like a facilitator, just someone there that, hey, if things need to get done, just we need you being responsible enough to kind of get those things done that will do them, that won't just leave and disappear, or give up or get overwhelmed and I can't do it, stuff like that. Just get something done, you
you got to
know,
make it happen.
just make things happen or whatever. And so that's kind of the role. And uh it's hard. I mean, it's not like real easy. I mean, you end up having to do a lot of stuff that no one else wants to do, and that's fine. That, I my goal was just, well, the movie has to get made. It has to get made, so whatever it takes, to get it made is whatever my job description is, and that's pretty much how I viewed it. Um, Creatively, I feel like the producer role is very important, because you in pre-production, you work with the screenwriter and the director and the studio. In this case, we didn't have a studio, so Billy and Jay were essentially the creative directors of the film, and so it was their vision that when I came at it, I was like, well, that's the client. It's their vision, and so from a creative standpoint, it's sort of like, what's their vision? What's the movie they want to make? And how do I help them get that on the screen with the budget that we currently are looking at? That changed a little bit as we were working, but not a whole lot. I mean, I think when I started looking at, when I first read the first draft, they were over 100,000, but I don't remember, you know, uh, quite what level it was. But the budget did increase a little bit as we were working. But part of my job was looking at it like, okay, well, let's just assume it's going to be around this number. So we need to make sure that this is kind of doable creatively. So what do you have to chop out, you know? And I mean, you read many of the early
Mm-hmm.
drafts. I don't think a lot of the stuff that was in there that was too expensive to do would actually made the movie any better. You know what I mean? Because at the heart of a movie, you buy the characters and want to follow their story or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can nitpick, but when you like a movie, you nitpick less.
Right.
So that was sort of like, I felt like my main mission was to, what's the core essence of the movie, and can we get that across? What's the best way to get that across on the screen or whatever?
Leon said, "I've never met a producer that went the extra mile like you, Scott."
Yeah. Well, Leon, to his credit, he's worked on some pretty big budget things.
Yeah, that's the thing that kept blowing me away. Anyway, was that Billy would call or text and he'd go, "Hey, I got so and so to do this," and it's just like what we were talking about earlier. It's like all these people were like falling into place, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and there you go, and Billy said, "Yeah, Scott didn't have an ego to bruise. Just did what he needed to do." And that's what I guess because I came in to the whole project, mentally. I mean, I sort of like I was physically there, but mentally I really kicked into gear. I would say by the end of September, because I was
Yeah.
having to. The job that I had before was such a mind suck that it almost took me 2 weeks to decompress from having to deal with Excel files and all the stuff that I was doing before. But you were already like super involved, like you were here, a lot too. I mean, way before. And so when exactly, or do you remember when you got involved? Because I knew that you had said that you'd met him in 2014, and you probably kept in touch with him or whatever. At what point did you say, "Yeah, I'm going to do this"?
No, I think I probably liked something or retweeted something that Billy about the movie. Maybe when they started the Indiegogo, or no, I mean the Kickstarter.
Right.
Something, I don't remember. He just sent me a message and said, "Would you be interested in being a producer on the film or whatever. And I was like, oh God, that's like super cool. I'm telling you, I'm an old school fan of the YouTube channel. And so I was like kind of thrilled just to be involved because I've always wanted to be in an episode of just Game Chasers. I would have like, he could have just said, I want to like, be in a Toy Chasers episode. And I would have been like totally fine with that. So producing the movie was fun, but when I read the screenplay, that was like, I was nervous. I was like, oh God. But when I read the first draft, and I know that Billy and Jay and Melvor worked on it for years, but the draft I read was pretty solid. I mean, I was like, ooh, so this is a Game Chasers movie. They didn't like try to like go off brand and do something that doesn't make any sense. It was like, okay, yeah, they understand their audience enough to write a film that seems very appealing on its face to the Game Chasers audience. Very smart, because that's your audience. You want to make something to please your audience. They're following you because they like what you do. So you do more of that. And when you try new and different things, you introduce those slowly over time until they're not new anymore. And people are like, oh, well, that's what they do now. So, they did Toy Chasers. That was a slight little offshoot. Well, there's a lot of people that just like the Toy Chasers episodes and want more of those. Hint, hint. Um, but that was smart. They didn't go totally off brand. They just
Right.
kind of did a little offshoot. Well, the movie is not. If you're a fan of the Game Chasers, if you're watching this and you've been watching them for years, you're gonna like the movie because it's very much just them in a movie. And that's what I liked about it when I read it. I was like, okay, well, this doesn't feel like I have a heavy lift. The heavy lift uh, is really a light burden when you consider the fact that they understand this core component, this basic thing that they've written something that seems appealing to their core audience. So it was really more about protecting that and just like bringing everything back to that. Like when you're trying to make a decision, based on financials, can we afford this scene? No. Now, you don't throw those scenes out without consideration of, but is it super important? And is there a way we can make that happen? Because it is really important. And fortunately, we have Yoshi, doing some of the CGI and stuff on some of the things that just weren't really doable. And we're getting those. I mean, some of the little things I've seen that he's done, I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. And it really helps. Like little tiny little threads, little connectors and stuff between scenes. So important. Establishment shots and things like that. So important. You see a haunted house for like 2 seconds and a lightning strike, where you're at, you get it. It helps you. Like the viewer just kind of knows where they're at and what to expect. It helps. Those little shorthands that you need in storytelling to get people on the same page with you. Like real quick,
Yep.
That so anyway, we're fortunate that some of the things that we thought were impossible we're getting in the movie. And I think the things that we ended up tossing out, I mean, I don't think people are going to miss them. I think again it's down to story, characters, you know that's what keeps people engaged in a movie.
Well, how upset were you that they had to take out all of the centaurs?
I'm pissed.
I don't know. I made a joke about centaurs the other day, and I was just like,
We're still in post, so
we could have them,
don't throw things out there that
dude.
might get people excited.
If a
Because
centaur, if a centaur
we
makes
might
it
have to
into the
put a
movie,
centaur in there. No, I think I mean stuff that people think are expensive. It's not an explosion or a building collapsing.
right,
Sometimes it's just a scene. It's like a different location.
right, right,
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut a location or two or three. Just to make this affordable because we need to film here, or we need this set to like serve as like three locations, and that in and of itself makes you make changes story wise. Like, okay, uh does this corner look like a video game store? Yes, it does.
right,
If you put enough stuff in there, you know
right.
and okay, we wanted a set that where the character can move around in the set, but they can't. They have to be static right here in this corner. So that makes you rewrite the scene. But can the scene be good? Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's one of the things that, I mean, I guess we'll wait to see the final result. But from what I've seen so far, or at least my job was always to help everybody get to where they could say the lines naturally, but also keep the integrity of that scene intact. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm so pleased from what I've seen so far. It's like, I mean, because other than probably Billy and maybe Clint, who did the DIT stuff, I've probably seen more of the movie than anyone at this point. And because I was there right in front of that monitor the whole time, except for the driving scenes. I didn't get to see those. But other than that, I saw pretty much everything. And I love it. I just can't wait. Now, for you, I know that you said that there were some things that were cut out, but it seems like those are things, like you said, it's almost like we're going to take this idea and we're going to move it over here into this scene. So now this scene is this and this. So how much of that, like, I feel like in a lot of ways it was just reworked. So the ideas that are presented are still there, just completely different than the way they were originally intended. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In the script process, I mean, you always end up having like beats in the story that you definitely want to preserve no matter what. So you end up like you might move that story beat to a different character, if necessary. So yeah, that all that changes. It's like when you have a story to tell, you use any means available to you that seem to make sense to tell the story. Whatever characters you have, whatever sets you have, whatever situations, scenes you have, you have that story in mind, and you end up like shuffling things around throughout the whole process to kind of keep that through line going. It's like, oh, okay, now we ended up dropping this character, or this character ended up not being in the movie as much, or we didn't do this scene just didn't work. We need to come back to this again somehow because I feel like we missed this and we're going to come back to it. So that's part of the storyteller, like as a director. I mean, you end up being sort of the visionary, like I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. Even though it doesn't seem like I don't, that there ends up having to be sort of a person that has to be the gatekeeper of the whole thing, in sort of like, like I'm sort of the beating heart of this, and I know what I want. And Billy was that person. He day to day, I felt like even though he had questions and challenges and obstacles to overcome, I never felt like he lost track of the vision of what he was trying to accomplish that day. And I know he really obsessed on that and got really into himself and really withdrawn. And I could sense that, and I was like, dude's like totally reliving like every scene over and over and over right now. It's got to be mental torture. I could feel it from a distance. So like,
Well, yeah, and is he well,
the torture of that mentally have to like replay everything like so many times because you're trying to mentally work it out in your head, but you can't control other people and you can't make them act
right.
the way you just try and draw it out of them as best as you possibly can, but they're not people aren't robots, so it's like this the everything that you have to do as a director is like whatever it takes, you have to do it, whatever means, whether you need to prod or prick somebody a little bit or get them a little pissed off or maybe tell them a joke or maybe give them a shoulder massage or whatever it took, to 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 get what you're trying to get out of them, and it's just what you have in your head, which never works out, never plays out. Like, what is it? Is it MacArthur or was it Eisenhower that said plans are worthless, but they're absolutely essential? Like, you know, totally at odds with each other. But you have to have a plan, but you have to also understand that the plan will fall apart. It's just going to. And so you become the plan, like a living, breathing plan. When it all falls apart, I'm the structure, you know. And so that was good, and kudos, props to Billy, because every day was a challenge, logistically, financially. I mean, every day was
And
a
then
challenge.
trying to herd the actors, all that kind of stuff.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean it
Yeah.
was just it's one of those things where I don't know what it's like to live in Billy's shoes, but I can imagine that you've written this thing over the course of 2 years. You've gotten it somehow, gotten a fan base that is willing to put up their own money to help you finance this movie. You get a producer, you get an assistant director, you get all these people, you got all the people on set, you're making the movie, things are going wrong, you're making the changes, you're signing checks, you're doing all this stuff, you're losing your mind. You get all this stuff together, you're starting to edit, and you're really enjoying the process because now he's just there with the thing that he made, and then some idiot comes out of nowhere and goes, "Hey, that looks like crap, and you looks like you made it for $5,000." And you're like, dude, that's the. I mean, I hate to go back to that, but if you think about, I mean, it's like now I'm starting to really, because before I remember when we were first doing location scouting, right? Me and Billy would be driving around or whatever, and he would tell me about some of these stories about some of these issues that he has to deal with. The trolls, right? They come out,
Yeah.
and I just remember thinking, um, like, dude, look at what you built. Look at what you've done, and I couldn't understand it. Now I understand it. When I'm starting to think about what that's got to feel like to go through all this, it's a passion project that you've willed into reality,
Mm-hmm.
and then somebody wants to crap all over it without even seeing it,
Yeah.
and it's just like,
I think as I get older, I'm starting more and more to appreciate and understand that um, you have to do things to please yourself. We talked about this earlier.
mm-hmm,
You're your own harshest critic in most cases, unless you're a weirdo. Most people doubt themselves. Most people self-analyze. They go over and over things ad nauseum. And so you have to make a movie. Like, I was sitting there at Billy's house looking at scenes and stuff that he'd edited, and I had some thoughts and tweaks and stuff. But, and I mentioned a couple, but I thought, you know what? Billy is like, he's a pretty harsh critic of himself. So I feel like some of this stuff is he's already thought about it, and I'm not trying to come across as critical, but more as someone who is trying to help or as an ally. Sometimes being an ally and a helper is like being just shutting up and just
Mm-hmm.
saying, "I'm here. I got your back. You do your thing." This is Game Chasers is Billy and Jay. You guys make a Billy and Jay movie. You have to. You know, it's you gotta be happy with it, and I think if you are, you're going to please the majority of your fan base, and you might find a wider audience. Can't make something trying to appease someone else. You just most of the time that comes across as just commercial and
Disingenuous.
disingenuous. No one cares.
Yep.
It's the holiday special.
Right. Caravan of Courage.
Yeah. Just, you gotta try and just make the thing that you think you'll like,
Yep.
and you will find an audience out there. It could be big, it could be small, it could be cult, whatever. That's fine. I mean, there's people that make livings out of being making films, comics, art, toys to a small cult audience. That's cool. Do it. I mean, if you find your family, make content for your family. And that, I think, over time will broaden.
Well, see,
That will grow.
and that's the thing, because I mean, I'm pretty sure I quickly, when we first met, where I'm driving us all over Dallas. It seemed like that one day we were like, it was a long day, but
Yeah.
I had told you that I had signed on, or basically quit my job, made the decision to quit my job after reading like 10 pages of the script, because I knew Billy well enough that, and I'd seen enough of I got to be honest, I didn't watch a whole lot of Game Chasers because they were my buddies. I've known these guys for
Yeah.
20 something years. So it was like,
Yeah.
oh man, they're just being goofballs or whatever. And I, watched a couple of seasons and then watched bits and pieces as, I saw them grow and grow. But yeah, after those like 8 to 10 pages, it's basically the first scene. Okay? First scene of the movie. That's all I read. And I was like, I'm in. I have to do this. If I don't do it, I'm gonna kick myself for the rest of my life. And it's because it was that feeling that, and I thought there was a genius in what it's playing to that audience, the collector's audience, the Game Chasers fans, but it's appealing to to me, I mean, I could be overselling it and wouldn't be the first time, but I feel like this is it's universal. It's kind of like a lot of movies. I've talked about this many times on this show, but it's basically the closer you get into a story and the closer you focus in on character, the more universal it is, no matter who it is. So you can find yourself, or you can find a bit of yourself in all kinds of different characters if they're drawn well enough. If that makes sense. I feel like this has enough of that I feel like people I think he's going to be surprised at how many people actually connect with this movie, with the movie and the story. Because it's I don't know. I just hope I'm right. I feel like I'm right. And I hope I'm proven right. But man, I think that it's one of those things where I feel like it's rare to be able to say I'm playing to a specific crowd, but it appeals to a lot of people. anybody that's, gosh, lost a loved one. You know, the
Yeah.
it's simple.
Well, humor is universal. So hopefully we can get this released in different markets, and maybe we'll be a hit in Thailand. I mean, who
Yeah,
knows?
you never know. Yeah,
Billy and Jay might become huge stars in Australia or Japan, or who knows, and put on retropaloozas in Munich or something. You
oh,
just don't know where you'll find an audience. I mean, that's what's so weird about, like, for instance, every once in a while you hear about this. It'll be like, well, did you know that such and such was like a huge recording star in Germany in the 80s? I'm like, no, had no clue. They didn't have any hit songs over here. Oh
you talking about
yeah.
David Hasselhoff?
Yeah, Hasselhoff. He's a great example.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he was like, but there's actually because I'm a toy collector, there's actually toy lines like that in the States were complete bomb, and over in whatever country they were like huge, like it just like swept the nation there. And so it's weird. I mean, that's what's so great about, today in terms of, creating a film. It could be culturally relevant in who knows what place, which is cool.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, you're just trying to connect with an audience.
Yeah, Leon said, I can't wait for Billy and Jay to be translated into Mandarin.
Yeah.
And then, as Jim said, how do you say chode in Mandarin?
Yeah. It could be insulting. Who
It's
knows?
it's just weird though. I just feel like they, because when it really comes down to it, it's the three of them that sat down and really kind of crafted. I mean, Billy had that initial idea, but then it was the three of them kind of crafting it, and almost picking away at the pieces that didn't make sense. And I don't know, it was just, it's really, the whole movie is like that, and that's why I was so pleased with what I was seeing, and everybody kind of coming together. Even some were getting paid, some weren't, and then you've got all of us into this. It's like a big cauldron of stuff, and you make this thing. It is just beautiful. It's, to me, that's beautiful. It's one of those things that I didn't realize as it was happening. I didn't,
Yeah.
and I didn't appreciate it as much as it was happening, because really it was just trying to get through the day, and like, oh my god, I got to keep track of all these scenes. I got to write down all these numbers. I should have been. I wish that I was more present in the moment, because man, it was just it was so much fun. It was so
Yeah,
good.
stuff like that always happens. I mean, I remember when I was running comic conventions in the 90s, I had all these really great guests. I mean, I had like Star people that were in Star Wars movies and Star Trek TV shows and comic book guests, and I had all these like people like Todd McFarlane. And some days I got to appreciate that and like really like enjoy it and be in the moment. But a lot of times I was so busy that it was just sort of like, yeah, I spent the whole day with like George Takei from Star Trek, and I spent 5 minutes like talking to him, and the rest of the time I spent like running errands and like just I was busy,
Right.
and so I was with that person. I was like sitting next to them, but I had so much going on. It wasn't like we were just like chilling and hanging out and just like talking about how cool life was and stuff. It just you just get like wrapped up in all the things that are going on, and you kind of just don't really get to like enjoy that. And I think later you get to kind of think about things, and hopefully at like a premiere for the movie, for us, we'll be able to just be there, and I'm
Take
sure
it all
someone will
in.
be stressed out about something that day. It'd probably be Jay, right? Like managing all the the event itself, and he'll be all stressed out. But hopefully everybody else can just enjoy, like reminisce, talk about. Remember that shitty day, how cold it was, and
Right. Well, that's
drizzling. You know.
so that's a question or a set of questions that I ask every person. Well, so was that the worst day for you? That cold day when it dropped
uh,
30 degrees in like 12 minutes?
physically, I think I had mentally worse days, but physically, those cold, dark, long days, they were tough because some days I had a lot of footwork to do. And you know how footwork and activity, you don't focus on how uncomfortable you are. You're just like working and you're
Mm-hmm.
keeping your blood running. But then some days you're just required to you need to sit there and be quiet and be available. But that's it. That's when you're cold and you're tired,
You focus on
like
how, yeah.
you slept like 4 hours or something. It's tough, just like to be there and just like suffer through it. And you're not even like the actors are the ones that are struggling. They're like trying to get through the lines and trying to get it right. You can't help them. Whenever you interject yourself in situations like that, you're really never helping. I mean, usually when someone needs help and they really need it, they'll come to you and go, okay, I just need another opinion on this. Most of the time, people that like jump in and are like, you're doing it wrong. It just doesn't help. So I try. I mean, sometimes the urge is like impossible. Like you feel like you got to say something to somebody, like, dude, you realize. I just want you to know that I have to say that you're fucking this up. But most of the time you're not really helping with that because people are, they're going through the lines, they're working it out, they're trying to, you're just noise and you're interrupting them in a lot of cases. So it's really a delicate balance between knowing when when is it appropriate to go ahead and try and interject an idea or a solution, and when is it not. And I think most of the time when you limit your advice to just your best advice versus whatever shit's at the top of your head, because most of that stuff is like garbage, useless, and you need to start filtering yourself. Um, you know, People will come to you for advice when you just don't throw out the garbage. When you're thinking about things and you think about them from all the angles first, like your perspective, their perspective, the audience's perspective, the editor's perspective. Think about it. What do all these people need in this what we're shooting right now? What does everybody need? And that when you take the perspective off just your opinion and what's required, it does help you filter things a little bit more. Well, I don't particularly find Eric funny. I think he's lame.
Who was that supposed to be?
I don't know. I'm just ragging on Eric just randomly.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
uh
get it.
no, I always try to view, like, again, people, characters, they were characters, like Eric, like what's pure Eric in every moment, like,
Right.
you know um and that again, it's not your version of what this character is. It's like, who is the character, and then that becomes everybody's kind of responsibility, and you don't have to try to be the authority on that person. You try to be collaborative, I guess, is what I'm
Right.
spent 10 minutes trying to say
No, but
just now.
I like hearing somebody else break that down. You know what I mean? It's like you want to help, you feel like you can help, but in helping, you're hurting. And it's just funny that to hear somebody say what was in my head a lot, because there were times when I wanted to just go, no, you're saying the wrong friggin' stop it. But it was like I had to keep stepping back because number one, I don't know. Sometimes they did 75 different changes to the scene. And my job was I was timing everything for Billy, which may have been the wrong thing to do. Maybe I should have been paying more attention to continuity. But for me, it was like I was really trying to pay attention to that integrity of that scene. Like, I know what this scene's supposed to accomplish. As long as we're getting there, I don't care what's being said as much. I'm more interested in, does the scene work for that scene? Like, this is the scene where, Eric farts. I don't know. But it's like, if this is the scene, as long as Eric farts in that scene, I don't care how everybody reacts to it. As long as we get that, I'm good. And so it's like,
and that's a vital role, because we were making, we did changes on the fly all the time, and I would lose track. I would be like, okay, so I don't know what's going on right now. I have no clue, but I'm just gonna, because I'm not involved in whatever changes were made, and they were made in a conversation that just happened over in this corner 5 minutes ago, that ends up being a big continuity issue.
Yeah.
You were, one of those people that were like watching all of that stuff, because some of those things do matter when you're trying to thread a scene together that was filmed over 3 days. It matters, and that's why when you watch movies, it happens on the regular. Like, stuff is out of continuity all the time on big productions of all types, movies, TV, from cut to cut. I can see hairstyle changes, clothing changes, attitude changes, age changes. Like, I can tell when shit's been filmed a year apart.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell. And if you follow movies close enough, like I do on certain things, like a Star Wars or an Avengers or something big that I'm really into, I'll know, production on this movie got, they filmed it again. They like filmed the movie, scrapped it, filmed it again a year later. This person had a mustache. This person,
Right.
All that kind of stuff. You start then, because those things, when you're watching the movie, they all stand out like very, like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
He gained some weight.
Or the pickup shots, like in episode 1, when it's obvious that Ewan McGregor's got a wig on, because it's like a year later.
Because he has a wig on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it just looks weird, and he looks older somehow. It's like much older. It's weird. But
stuff like that. Because our minds, we experience life in real time, and when we're experiencing in our movie, our minds have evolved to we just pick up on those little subtle things.
Oh.
Because we pick up on little subtle things in conversations with people, like body language, the look in their eyes, the tone in their voice. We pick it all up. We've evolved. We're
Body
designed.
Language.
To respond, threat or not threat, essentially. So there's all these like cues that we pick up that we're kind of like subconsciously aware of, but consciously completely not aware of. And some of that stuff bubbles up in movies, and we pick up these little oddball things. So it becomes very important to try, again, like when you, like, we could film a scene that we filmed weeks apart, parts of it, and putting it all back together and and trying to stitch that continuity together again is tough.
And again, now that I've done it,
Some days, Jay was hungover. Some days he wasn't. I mean, but the scene took place seconds, like 2 seconds ago he looked normal, and 2 seconds later he looks all puffy and like shit because he stayed up till 3 a.m. drinking.
Yeah, it's so weird because it's like now that I've done it, I know exactly, and especially if it ends up being the next time, like if it is an actual sequel, Billy writes it, directs it, all that kind of stuff, I'm gonna do the job a lot different. If I'm allowed back, I would think I'm allowed back. But if I am allowed
You're
back,
fired. You're fired.
oh, okay. Well then, everybody sub like all it, and there's a donate button at the bottom. Just kidding.
Preemptively fired from.
Yeah, you're never gonna work in this town again. But it's like I feel like I should have focused more on that, because a lot of times the kind of detail that I was putting in, I think I've said this like 2 or 3 times on the length of the show, but the kind of detail that I was putting into it is helpful if you've got an editor and a writer that are 2 different people, or director and an editor that are different people. Because the editor needs to know what the best take is, all that kind of stuff. But I knew damn well that Billy was going to be watching or looking at every single take anyway to see, because he's that kind of person. He's that kind of detailed person that he wants to see every single version and see and pick the exact best one,
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a way, I was wasting my time a lot doing that, and I should have been paid more attention to the continuity. I know now that before I even get to set, I need to be going on this. The previous scene was shot on day whatever, and he was wearing this, and I need to be able to reference the pictures that I took. I didn't take nearly enough pictures. I mean, there's a lot of things that I feel like, I should have done better. But now I do want to say a couple of things that came up in the. First of all, let's just say David Rivas, he's a very, very nice guy, but he's the biggest troll on any of the Game Chasers stuff. But he's a very nice guy. So he's just he's playing around. He said, "Who is this Scott guy?" And Leon says, he says, "Look at the title of the interview, David." And then he says, who's SFX Leon? He seems to be an asshole. Just kidding. He goes, "No, he is." Leon responded with, "No, he is." It's just there's some funny stuff in here.
That's very Leon, of course.
Oh yeah, and Leon said, "Scott, your camera's giving me Blair Witch vibes." It's just, I don't know. It's just funny stuff. And then Jim makes a very good point. There you go. Yeah, with the nose and everything, with the snot.
Yeah.
But Jim said it's weird that halfway through the shoot, he felt like he knew how Roy was going to react to the environment more so than the lines reflected. So the character informed rather than the text on the page. And I feel like
that's good.
It's weird. It's those
Jim nailed his character, like when I first met him and he read the scene, I was like, ooh, that's it. I mean, I think that's kind of the magic when you're casting is there's people that can act, of course, and you want someone that can act, but I think more importantly, sometimes people are the character that you're looking for already, and it's just sort of like, oh, that's it, that what you got going on. I mean, it's kind of like the intangible of talent, like I can't teach you. I don't think I can teach someone how to be creative, but I could teach or help a creative person hone a skill that I had experience in. Right. So a talented artist, if you're an artist that, has, skill and experience or whatever, and you see someone that has talent, you can hone them, you can take them and say, okay, here's what you need to work on to make yourself a better artist or whatever. So I feel like the trade of acting is something that's teachable. So if you find the person that sort of embodies the character, it's if someone's dedicated and willing to apply themselves to the craft, that they can act a good scene. But you need that character to start with, or you kind of have nothing. You know what I mean? You just have someone that is a placeholder.
Well,
And so that we were very fortunate in many of the key roles in the film. It was like we just kind of, well, and some were written, for instance, Eric, good example. I mean, he's in the movie because he's Eric. Eric is in the movie because he's Eric, and he's part of the whole gang.
yeah.
Um, so we were just like, Eric, just kind of be more Eric. That was like acting advice. Just kind of no, just be more you. And then
Yeah.
that's
Turn you
that's
up to
right.
12. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Um, and so we did have, people like Jim that were just sort of naturals, like just in their parts.
Well,
Like, yeah,
even Billy
that's
said,
it.
remember the night that because you were there when we were doing the casting, and Leon, Jim said, boy, wouldn't that have been weird? Leon and Jim's role. But anyway, Jim had asked, he goes, so what's the motivation of me doing this? And Billy was like, nobody's asked that. Cool. Well, here's why, and blah 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 blah. Right? And
Yeah.
so Jim had a Jim way of going about it. That is a compliment, by the way. He's here. You know what I'm saying? It's like he had a way
Yeah.
of really getting into it, and then what's weird is how he pulled other things from his life to infuse this new, or at least to me, and probably to everybody that had read the script. It's like, oh, that's different than I even imagined, and it's
Yeah.
it's great. You know what I mean? And it's like it's the same thing with Dave. To me, Dave was one of those where I feel like he read completely different on the page, that character, and then Dave brought something completely different and was like, I'm shocked. It was shocking how different it was, but how much more I liked it. It was like I
Yeah.
couldn't even have imagined Dave. If you didn't know Dave, I don't know. It's just like you said, we got extremely lucky in many of those parts. And Chief was another one where it's like he brought something completely different.
Yeah.
And
Well, I won't mention any other like projects or movies, but I feel like this movie is going to be way more character driven than similar projects. So I feel like if you're in sort of the cult of personality of some of these folks, like, Jim or Eric or Leon, and I say cult and I mean really cult, but um, you're going to like it because they're themselves, not Leon, but Leon's there in spirit throughout the whole thing, trust me. But they're the essence of them is in the movie. So if you're down with these guys, if you watch their YouTube videos, if you follow them on social media, you're gonna like them in the movie, I feel like.
I agree. It's like, I don't know. Man, I'm so excited. I know Billy's working hard. I've been doing sound cleanup, helping out where I can. But we got to get those pickup shots done. So those pickup shots, hopefully we can get those done, and then all that connective tissue, like you said, even some of the establishing shots that still need to be done. We can get. I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, I'm giddy. I'm giddy with it. It's just like there's days when I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I did that. And then there are days like when I really start to think about it, I'm like, man, this could be just something. I just want to be able to sit back and go, yeah, I helped with that, you know? Or there's a couple of scenes where I injected just one little line that I thought was funny and they loved it. And they go, yeah, we're going to do that. And I'm like, nobody will care if I say that I wrote, no, that was my line. Nobody will care. I just hope it's fun and it's funny and it works.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I think this feels like a very much a community project, and that's why I think it's exciting because I feel like so many people got to participate in the process and get to be in the movie, get to see their name or see their face or get a line or get a joke or get a cameo. It's just so good. It's all like like everybody involved was into it, and I think that always works well. The movies that when you hear the backstory of some flop of a movie and you're never surprised to learn that everybody hated it.
right, even when they
Right?
were making it,
Everybody this is terrible idea, terrible script. Everybody was at each other's throats the entire time. It wasn't that at all. It was hard and there was lots of difficult days, but man, we found plenty of time to like goof off and do stuff fun and enjoy it too. You
yeah,
had to because you were with like fun people,
yeah,
you know. So that I think that's what's going to translate, and that's really important. Fun, I think, translates on screen when people are into it. So hopefully that's going to carry the day.
I think so. I mean, Jim said, "Hey, that Kool-Aid was on sale." Yes, it's weird. Leon had said that I think he was rooming with Alejandro, the boom guy, and I think so. I could be wrong. But he had never heard of the Game Chasers, and then he showed him, and he became a fan. And it's like, yeah, yeah, he just said yes. So it's like, it's weird how a lot of the people that that were hired to be on set became fans throughout the production, and it's almost like that passion got passed on to them, and it
Yeah.
just kept growing and growing. And by the end of it, it was like, man, I really want to. I just want to hug everybody. I want to be like Chief, but I was not feeling up to that. Chief is a special guy, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah. Chief made sets pretty good. I loved having him around. He was a great encourager, very enthusiastic. Um, yeah, good times.
my dad just said something very important. He because I missed the second part of the question. What was your best day on set?
Uh, let's see. Oh, you know what? I gotta say that shot at the roller rink where we did that continuous shot. That was that. I think the feel good feeling of making that shot work was just a lot of fun. And then didn't we have our wrap party? Was that the same night we had our wrap party that night?
I don't know. I
I think it
was.
was that. I think it was that same night. Anyway, that was a good. It was just a good. We're kind of at the end of the run.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the hard stuff had been tackled. We had that shot under our belt. It was a tough one to do because long continuous shots without breaks are tough. Because it's so easy to screw something up. Just a wrong eye line can screw up a shot like that. So I think that was like probably the funnest day. We had Yoshi there and we had Matt there. We had a lot of our, just our good buds just like hanging around, and we had a lot of fun extras. We had some great extras. Uh the what was it? It was the comic shop. Billy knows what town that's in. He had some local comic shop that I went and got some gamers that were D&D gamers to be extras.
Yeah.
Man, they were authentic to the core.
Yeah.
Those guys were great. So yeah, they were all legit. There was no fake D&D gamers.
Yeah. They weren't
They were all,
they weren't stunt gamers.
no, they were, you could tell they were living the life, so that was a fun, I think overall just a really fun day. And I like the roller rink. I know some people weren't happy with that set locale, but I thought it worked out
You know,
great.
and that's again, there's, like I have my good days and my best days and all that kind of stuff, or my worst days. That was, again, one of my worst days and best days. Worst days because I was dealing with my issues, my stomach issues,
Yeah.
and I felt like crap. The whole day, I was really working hard to try to not be a burden to anyone else. And luckily, I wasn't. I mean, other than, I always bring it up, other than getting in Eric's face that one day, or that one moment. But anyway, we worked that out. It was just,
It happened.
but yeah, that was probably the worst day for me personally. I mean, the cold days were cold. Were definitely cold. But that was my worst day because I felt like such a butthole at the end of it. You know what I mean? And then I felt so bad, and everybody was we're going to have a rap party. I'm like, y'all have fun. I'm leaving. Bye. I had to leave. I was so tired, and I was just dead. And it's like, I wish I could have like cloned myself so I could have been around for some of the fun stuff afterward. Cause I mean, there were days when, y'all went out to eat or whatever. Y'all went to play games. I missed all of that cause I was just so dead.
Yeah. We had a great time at what was the barbecue joint?
Oh yeah.
It was in Arlington, right?
Yeah. Well, South Fork, I think it was Hard 8, wasn't it? Yeah. Billy's in here.
Hard 8. That was one of the few nights where we were able to like go just get away for, because every night you're totally exhausted and you just kind of crash. And for whatever reason, that night we had enough energy to go out to eat.
And it was awesome.
Yeah, we had a good time.
And
yeah,
Billy said, I'm sorry I missed this earlier. He said, I thought they were rehearsing being nerds in front of the building, but they were just normal talking.
No, they were, man. Yeah, because I on a few, just to be polite, on a few occasions I tried to like hang out with them and like, hey guys, what's going on, and they would kind of ignore me and go back into their very important conversation about whatever it was, and I was like completely lost. They would like look at you in this reality and then go back into this other reality in their conversation, and they were like gone.
Yeah, it was. I remember I had my stuff there, my little bag with all my notebooks and whatever I was doing, right? So I'm grabbing my stuff, and the guy's like, he goes, hey, and he asked me a question about something, and I answered I don't remember what the question was, but then I said, oh, are you here? Are you one of the extras? You're going to be in the scene later? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, cool. And he goes, yeah, I brought my bow staff. What? And I'm like, what? And he said, I brought my bow staff just in case you need somebody to look cool or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember going, well, yeah, we'll see, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
those guys were the most authentic people on set. For sure.
And that's one of the things that I always I didn't learn this lesson until very late in life. It was 2005. Revenge of the Sith is coming out. I don't think I've told you this story. It's kind of real quick. So Revenge of the Sith is coming out, and me and Brian and Jerry, the Switched On guys, when we did the podcast back in 2005, we decided we were going to go and stand in line with the guys waiting in line to see episode 3. And we were thinking, I had a preconceived notion of what those people were going to be like. And they were some of the most welcoming, down-to-earth, loving people. Like, genuinely, they were like, yeah, we don't even know who you are, but yeah, come on, man. We'll sit here and we'll talk with you. And we enjoyed it so much that they became part of our show, that show. And it was awesome. And then we're packing up, leaving. Hey guys, thanks for coming out or whatever. Because we've come to find out they weren't just there standing in line for the movie. They were doing it for charity. They were raising money for charity. And it was just like, these people are amazing. And I thought they were all just, just whatever. That's completely gone now. And then on the way out, they're like, hey, we've got a whole theater, the first showing. We've got the whole theater. You guys want to come? You can do the show in the theater? And we were like, yeah. Holy crap. So just because, I don't know. I don't want to ever say anything bad about guys like that. Because those guys they're like you said, they're just genuinely, and some of them are turds. I mean, come on. Everybody's got some turds everywhere, every now and then. But man, those guys were just amazing, and it changed my whole viewpoint. And then you think about, the guys that like what you were saying earlier, is like, it's like, well, I like collecting comic books, and what are you, some kind of nerd? What do you, whatever. And like, yeah, you sit around and you talk about, football scores and you obsess over, who's going to get traded to what team or whatever. Like, everybody's a nerd about something.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Let's all be.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so fun,
I think always have empathy and always be willing to put yourself in other people's shoes. And I think in all things, nerdy things, normal things, if we can do more of that, we'll be less judgmental and less assholey to people. It's like I don't understand all kinds of people's things, but I'm learning over time as I get more and more into my hobbies. I think I become more empathetic to people that are like into collecting beer cans. It's like, dude, I get the passion now.
right?
It's like I don't I don't understand why this one is more important than this one, or this one's more valuable or more interesting than this one. They both look kind of like beer cans to me, and that's how I understand my, like, if you look at my toys, like, if you just look at it as an overview, some of them stand out, but a lot of them just kind of like, well, what? They're just dolls. You just have different dolls, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
I understand from a big picture, from not from not knowing the intricacies of what I collect and why certain things are important and why certain things aren't, or whatever. How you could look at it that way as adult. You collect dolls. So I think we just need to honestly just be a little bit more patient with other people.
it's true.
We're tolerant.
It's true. It's just, I don't know. It's funny. Like, I look around my house. I've got a Millennium Falcon Lego on a table in our little work area. Got the big Star Destroyer on our kind of there's a separator in between. I need to take pictures of these and put them on Twitter or something, because they are cool. But there's that, and then I've got an A-Wing, the new A-Wing Lego that's on the mantle. And it's like, I don't even really collect them. I just like building them, and my wife likes building them with me, And for like a few weeks, like the Star Destroyer it was the Millennium Falcon. Took us like 3 weeks to do it, and it was like, it was so much fun. But it was almost like date night every night. We're just hanging out with each other, and we're building and stuff. Like one, it comes in like separate bags. So I'll build this one, but she'll get all the pieces ready, the steps. So all I got to do is build them. And then the next time we'll switch off. I'll get the pieces ready for her. And it's like, so we get to both build it and both be involved in it. And now it's like, I don't know. It's cool. So I get it. I get the thing, but my whole thing is I can never collect everything that I want to collect. And I think that's why I don't collect as much as I do, is because I'd want everything and I would never get finished. It would never be. I mean, especially like you said, Star Wars.
Rob, we don't need you in the game. We just don't need another competitor.
Okay. No, don't worry about it.
So I don't I don't encourage anyone that doesn't collect to like get into it. You know, it's like no.
But see, I still want to get
This is full. This kind of collecting right here is full.
Don't worry.
You don't want anything.
Don't worry. Shogun Warriors, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, there we go. Show them a little Shogun Warriors.
That's just.
But we don't need. See, I don't need any competition in the Shogun Warriors game at all. I'm trying to complete this, so after I get it completed, y'all can jump in or whatever. It's probably the same with you collect NES games or Super NES games, sort of like we don't need you in this.
Well,
until I get all of them, and then you can jump in.
I just want to get a few of the micro collection things, like the picture you sent. And I was like, oh man, I can't do it right now. But yeah, I'm going to get some more of those because in fact, I was thinking that I should bring them out and just go look, because I still have some of my old ones, but I don't have the big sets anymore. I want to get the whole sets again. But yeah, I mean, gosh, I think
you'll get sucked in eventually.
I don't know if I want to get all of it.
You're rounded enough. You'll buy that first micro set and you'll just be like, on the hook.
And be like, oh, I never had the Death Star one.
Oh, there's only 9 of them total.
Yeah, yeah.
That's totally doable.
Yeah. You don't. No. No. But gosh, we've been going almost 3 hours here. Do you have anything? Did we miss anything?
Just please link to the Indiegogo because we could still use some finishing funds, of course.
I've got it as an automatic event. It goes in every 30 to 40 minutes or so.
People should know. Serious people know. Real followers and fans, not trolls, know.
The real ones.
The money's going into the movie. Billy and Jay have put their own personal money into above and beyond what was raised. So nothing got blown, wasted. Nothing. I mean, we put everything on the screen and still doing it. So this isn't even about like trying to pay them back because I don't think those guys are going to get paid back unless the movie really hits and we get an audience. It's all going into the movie because that's what's most important. At this point, it's do or die. Make it happen. Make it as good as possible. So anyone that pre-orders, they're going to get the movie. It's coming out. It's not fake.
It's going to happen.
It's real. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people are going to be blown away.
Yeah, I think I do too. I think it's the quality of the movie is above and beyond the budget. Way beyond above and beyond the budget. So,
well, cool. There you go. There's the blown aways. That's awesome. It's like now I have subs and they can spam the stuff. But anyway, guys, thank you, Scott, for coming on. Thank you for hanging out, indulging some of my really geeky questions. And but of course, we're all geeks here, right? So it's all good.
Oh yeah.
But thank you, and of course you can reach him. You've seen the event that comes up. You can see you can find him at Kid Cosmic on the Twitters and the Instagrams, and yeah, I guess that's it. So, and one more thing, Saturday show will be Yoshi. So I'm gonna talk with him about, well, he can't tell me everything, but we're gonna talk to him a little bit and see how that, what he's doing on the movie and stuff. So that'll be fun too. But guys, thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on Saturday. Thank you again, Scott.
Thank you. Bye everybody.